Grim Dawn. Ever seen this game before? Sure you have. It pops up on the Steam store page damn near every time you open the thing. And after leaving this poor game unread for the past, 9 years, never really giving it a second thought, it finally managed to wear me down enough to pony up the money and get myself a copy. Hell, it deserves a shot. Lord knows she's been trying to get my attention long enough. That feels like a fucked up metaphor. My bad. Too many glasses of rum before I tried to write this thing. Anyway, so Grim Dawn, solid ass game. How do you like that for a review? It's good. Try it out if you haven't. It's on sale every other week for about $5. So, yeah, short and sweet, I guess. See ya. Okay, I'm kidding, though I did mean what I said about Grim Dawn. It really is a great game in a lot of different ways, from the gameplay, tone, ambiance, the whole nine. It really was just a wonderful experience. I don't have another way to put that. But more importantly, at least to me, Grim Dawn serves as this perfect intro to the ARPG genre of games. A genre I have longed to get into, but have always been kind of intimidated by the amount of time and game knowledge it would take to really learn these games without a healthy dose of guides. So let's talk about it. And what about you? If you had to start a complete beginner to the ARPG genre, what game would you recommend, and why is it Minecraft Dungeons? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear it. So, how was Grim Dawn? I hear absolutely no one asking. Honestly, couldn't be happier with it. Dumb intro aside, I did mean what I said. Grim Dawn was genuinely an amazing play in so many different aspects. And that's from someone who didn't realize it was a top-down ARPG before I booted into the game for the first time. Yeah, attention span of an ADHD squirrel over here, not even the pictures tip me off. But either way, so much of Grim Dawn was such a great surprise. Movement may take a second to get used to, but that's nothing new when venturing into a new type of game, and just as I got used to that, boom, class system. Yeah, I thought it was weird I couldn't pick my class in the title screen, but ho-ho, the game had a good reason for it. Grim Dawn operates on a dual class system. You'll pick your first class on your first level up, and again a second class to pair with it at level 10. And with a healthy amount of options, this system allows for some really interesting combination of attack styles. Maybe some melee and magic, maybe some ranged and magic, maybe magic and magic. Point is, offering up not one, but two playstyles for each individual character really lets you customize them for however you want to play the game. And these trees and progression systems themselves are both simple enough to grasp, but can really yield some interesting optimization should you be more familiar with how this type of an ARPG plays. Essentially, on level up, you will receive 3 points, and you can either put them into your mastery bar here at the bottom, or into the abilities and passives within the tree itself. The higher you go in mastery, the more options available to you, and the more abilities you have for combat. I really like this concept. It forced me to read through all the options in the tree itself to figure out, do I take a strict damage increase now with another point into this specific trait, or do I level up the overall mastery to unlock new abilities and passives for survivability's sake? I mean, of course, I chose power now, which turned out to be quite the mistake, but we will cover that in the next section of the video. And you also receive 1 point per level towards your attributes, physique, cunning, and spirit. To be entirely honest with you, I thought these were far more impactful towards min-maxing stats, and to a degree they sort of are, at least in the very early game, but in all reality they kind of get relegated to an arbitrary gear requirement pretty quickly. Most gear has a minimum attribute level to use it, so that's the main point as far as I can tell. They do give negligible bonuses to health, defense, and attack stats, but make far less of an impact than our third system in Grim Dawn, the constellations. Yeah, saw this and instantly panicked. Straight up having flashbacks to my first time of trying Path of Exile, saw the skill tree and nope. But thankfully with this iteration, while an absolute butt ton of reading and planning, was pretty easy to understand the concept of what it was going for. You go around and find these totems, either offer an Aether Gem or fight off a group of demons to earn a point that you can then use that point to pick a starting point on the constellation map. Each point that you put into it then provides you with additional colored orbs, which will unlock paths and starting points for all of the other associated constellations. To boil it down, essentially you find the ones you want and take any others that you can that provide you the orb currency to get the actual bonuses you are after. Yeah, I don't think I explained that well at all. It's kind of confusing until you actually give it a try, but that being said, guide and description, that will probably sum it up a lot better than I did. And this tree, or overall system of progression that it provides here, is where you can truly min-max your stats. Each constellation node provides multiple bonuses and additional augments to certain abilities, so it's worth taking the time to look through rather than just picking nodes at random. Yeah, I totally didn't do that. Could you imagine? Where the hell can I reset the constellation tree in Grim Dawn? Somebody tell me, please. listen, don't judge me. I can't read. Where was I? Loot. Yeah, let's talk about loot. Possibly the best concept of any game ever, and I am prepared to die on that hill. I don't think it would be that hard of a fight. Well, off rip, Grim Dawn decided to be special and break the 5 commandments of loot whoring. White is common, green is uncommon, blue is rare, purple is epic, and orange is legendary. Well, Grim Dawn said fuck that noise. White is common. Okay, at least they got that right. Green is rare. Huh. Blue is epic. Excuse me? Purple is legendary. That's just wrong. And orange is magic or materials. Why? You know how many legendaries I thought I was getting when I first got into the game? But no, they were actually fucking all dumb stuff aside on how they labeled the actual loot in the game, the system itself of Grim Dawn was fairly easy to follow. Each piece of equipment had a healthy amount of bonuses and negatives attached, which could be intimidating at first, I won't lie, but it was easy enough to follow as you gained confidence inside of the systems. I will say one big complaint I personally had was how often bosses and larger encounter monsters shit out green rares, even in the early game. It almost trained me to ignore the magic items because the greens were just better at first glance most of the time, where the reality was the opposite. There were a lot of magic rarity items I could have utilized had I looked at them a little bit more, but because there were so many greens, I just kind of ran with it. Luckily, the crafting system was there to teach me the errors of my ways, sorta. Honestly, really loved this crafting system in Grim Dawn. Finding new schematics was always a nice treat to jump back to town and see what I could potentially, use as an improvement to my current gear setup. And no single schematic felt like it needed an egregious amount of materials to craft. Even when it did require something I was low on, it was simple enough to find. Materials are pretty abundant in this game, which is actually kind of nice. Or really, should I have trouble finding it, another option I had was to check the vendors around town. The vendors sold most materials and odds and ends you may need at any given time. The only barrier of entry was the reputation system. A system that when I initially saw it had me rolling my eyes. World of Warcraft has really conditioned me after so many years to just fucking despise the word reputation, but hey, credit where it's due. Grim Dawn's rep system is actually a far more palatable one than most of them out there. Well, at least it is to me. Most quests and tasks will net a decent amount of rep for that area, so building your way up isn't the worst grind in the world. Okay, let's see. We got classes, trees, progression, constellations, loot, crafting, and reputation. What am I missing? I know it's here somewhere. Where the hell did I put? Oh, the map, duh! Yeah, the map. It's freaking huge, far larger than I was expecting, and each individual zone has quite a lot of areas to explore, which truthfully works really well. Grim Dawn's quest and story progression structure is heavily reliant on exploration, so that aspect in tandem with these vast areas, massive underground tunnels, and encounters as you come across them really has you spending extended time in each of the zones themselves without feeling stale or overdone. There is a bit of repeated areas, but that's towards the later portion of the game, and honestly don't really mind it because there's new stuff in it. Though, that being said, there was one kind of weird thing I had a bit of a complaint with, and that was in quite a few areas. There seems to be what I would call a logic problem to some of the routing in this map. Rather than feeling like a truly impassable obstacle, some of these rocks, fences, trees, and other piles of junk just feel like they are there to make you take the longer route for the sake of taking the longer route. Whereas we just smashed through a giant brick wall to get here, you're telling me a 1-foot fence is really stopping me. I didn't always feel like this, but there was a handful of times where, crossing a river to cut through a house, to go around a wall, to cut through another house, to cross another river, just to find myself on the opposite side of the fence I started at, kinda had me, what the fuck was the point of that? On second thought though, it fits perfectly with the tone and story of Grim Dawn. As like so many in this genre, the world of Grim Dawn is just the most depressing, hopeless, and cruel situation you can really think of. It's a world that would faster see its inhabitants torn apart by beasts or possessed by the Aether and murdered by your own damn family than let you experience that mythical emotion of happiness. Seriously, why are so many of these games so fucked up? And the story more or less continues that theme. Essentially, you take up the mantle of the last flickering hope they have in stopping this grim fate for humanity. Overall, I'd say that the story is actually pretty decent. It has some rather compelling moments as you progress further and further, but in my opinion, what really kicks it up a notch or two is, first, the majority of the NPCs are fully voice acted, which really does aid in providing tone to the story and the stakes at hand, and the deeper written lore, specifically the events regarding the Grim Dawn itself and how this world actually got to this point in the first place. And props to the developers for throwing this in. Picking up and reading, well, I guess technically technically just opening them. I know half EA ain't gonna read this stuff. Nets you a small bit of experience, so as someone who loves diving headfirst into the lore of really any game out there, getting a reward for it, yeah, really kind of feels nice. It's a minor thing, sure, but it's important to me, so yeah, points where points are due. Overall, Grim Dawn is a fantastic play for a veteran of the genre or a complete beginner picking up their very first ARPG, and me being the second of those options, I am more than happy with it. Plus, at like a cost of about $5, it's a really hard deal to beat, considering just the sheer amount of content the game possesses and the absolute plethora of combinations and classes and builds for subsequent playthroughs. But something I was simply not expecting and didn't realize it until much later into my second playthrough was just how perfect of an entry point Grim Dawn was for a novice to the ARPG genre. Look, I have always considered the big top-down ARPGs an awesome concept. They look so fast and intense and just like a damn good time, but they've always been this otherworldly beast to me when it comes to gaming. And part of that is because they range anywhere from very straightforward and a little too basic to have all that much depth to monstrously complex and so not beginner-friendly for someone maybe just wanting to try out the genre. It's not to say you can't just jump into something like Path of Exile as your first top-down ARPG. You totally can, but I'd argue to do that, you kinda have to rely on at least some form of guides to at least walk you through the basics and get you moving in the right direction early if you even want to sniff the endgame. Path of Exile, Last Epoch, Diablo, well, most of them, maybe minus Diablo 3, are games that someone not at least a little bit familiar with deeper building systems and managing a healthy amount of stats, augments, enchantments, and anything else to add additional bonuses will need to spend copious amounts of time of attempting to learn it on the fly, and that breeds mistakes, and in the case of something like the original Path of Exile, mistakes can be punishing. At least they kinda were in my opinion, more so than the others. Gathering Orbs of Regret when you inevitably realize you may have bunked your build somewhere can be enormously time consuming based on how far back the correction is. Not to mention if you are trying to fix it yourself without any help, there's a good chance you're gonna fuck it up again. Or my personal blunder when I first attempted to learn the game, throwing away crucial upgrade items or socketed weapons because I simply didn't fully understand their importance. I was too busy trying to manage the monstrous amount of systems the games threw at me and understand exactly what was affecting what to a noticeable level. The point is, sorry to harp on Path here, if you're brand new to the genre and aren't familiar with how these games play and operate, going at it without some form of guidance can be discouraging, and that's not how I like to play games. I want to learn and understand myself why taking this path will do this, and why this set of augments will affect this, and not have to be constantly running to guides every 5 minutes. And look, that could entirely be a me problem, but I feel like there are other people out there that feel the same way. They want to grasp the game, not just be shown the way by someone else. And there are easier entry points. Look, hate me if you want, but something like Torchlight may actually be more damaging than helpful. Yes, the combat and play of the game is roughly the same, but something like Torchlight is far more straightforward from builds to gear bonuses, so trying to make the jump from Torchlight to Path or Epoch or hell Diablo, sorta, will still be quite the uphill battle. The level of complexity is just too different. Or you know what, maybe you're just smarter than me and that's not a problem, which, fine, fair argument. But Grim Dawn does something rather special with its systems and gearing that really puts it in a great place for your first top-down ARPG. The trees are both straightforward enough to grasp at face value, giving you a more traditional layout, but also challenges you to really think about what you are dumping points into. You can either take what's available, or you can fill out the mastery bar to unlock more abilities. This trains you to slow down on your builds when you initially level up, and really weigh out what you can take now versus what's to come, and forces you to establish some kind of path forward. Take a few points here every level, but I'm really working to this location on the bar later, so I need to balance out my points and skills and mastery to get there, while simultaneously not making myself so weak that I can't actually progress the game and level up further. Then it kicks it up a notch by offering you the devotions through the Constellation tab that gives you the opportunity to really min-max your build. But again, these points are more limited, so placement choices matter. And inevitably, you will fuck it up, especially if you are coming from a more traditional RPGs with set skill trees that that spell out exactly what a point in this will do and what ability you gain from it. But in Grim Dawn, a fuck up is almost encouraged because you can reset all of your stats fairly easily. It's a low gold cost to reverse a step or two, so it breeds this encouragement of experimentation over and over. You can test a build, reset it, try out something different, and see exactly what the difference is. This allowed me to learn for myself and grasp what was changing based on my choices in my builds, without a wild time sink in between it. It's a really great place to learn how to manage and understand the effects of a ton of stats and augments changing at once, because it's easier and less discouraging to backtrack. I mean, I guess, is this the most exciting thing for an absolute veteran of the upper echelons of seasonal endgame ARPG, where a single slip-up is costly and punishing? Probably not, but coming into Grim Dawn, the more knowledge you have, the quicker you will be able to really cap out some really fun builds with a ton of abilities at your disposal. The gear is another great point for learning and understanding the inner workings of this type of ARPG, because at first it looks overwhelming to the uninitiated, but it's easy enough to follow once you start working out the build systems, because everything plays off everything. Before long, I mean, at least for me, you'll start grasping different concepts like, oh, okay, just because I have a single epic rarity item with only one piece of a set bonus, that doesn't necessarily mean it trumps my rare item that may do a bit less damage but has an ability it can utilize without 3 other pieces. Honestly, that might be the #1 thing I would tell any new player to an ARPG, because it took me way too fucking long to understand that. I was ditching rare items because, you know, blue is better, but it wasn't necessarily better because I needed like 3 other pieces to actually activate that part of the ability, which in turn, because I didn't have them, I should have just kept the item I had originally that had an ability that wasn't reliant on other pieces of gear. So, you know, I mean, yeah, regardless, there is still going to be some learning curve, but hey, it's a much more forgiving atmosphere to learn it in. For those reasons, I really do feel Grim Dawn offers up a perfect entry to the more complex ARPGs while simultaneously being a damn fun game to play. Hell, after this, Grim Dawn has actually made me more confident to go back and give Path and Path of Exile 2 another real shot, as jumping from this to this seems far less daunting now. Gotta love when games offer up a bit more than just a damn good time. Well, that's about it for me. Sorry, this might have been a bit erratic. I'm trying something new, you know, trying to ad-lib a little bit more instead of just reading what I wrote in front of me. I'm really trying to get rid of this weird inflection I have in my voice whenever I'm recording these, because I don't talk like this normally, and now I'm noticing it a lot more. We'll get there eventually. But what about you? What's the #1 game you would recommend to a brand new ARPG player? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear it. So I'm gonna go download Path of Exile and give it a second shot. The game looks so damn cool. I really want to experience it to its fullest. I'm sure I'll still fuck it up somehow. Anyway, see ya.